continue from Latitude 59 in Tallinn, and we're talking to Chef Burton, who is one of the great guys who has come back here second time.
Yes.
What brings you back for the second time, sir?
Well, there's so much activity in Eastern Europe that has not been exposed to the rest of the world as heavily as it should be. That I want to make sure that I am helping encourage people here to gain exposure in the U.S. And I come here to discover what's going on, because the education level, the ability to do startups, the interest in it is so high in Eastern Europe that it's a great place to be. So that's why I've come back the second time.
Very, very great to have you with us. But tell me how it happened you came across with a startup scene in a young age when you started?
Well, I started back in '82. First of all, I went to business school at Stanford. So I'm a Stanford graduate, undergraduate and graduate. And so the three of the first 6 team members that came together at Electronic Arts were in the same business school class at Stanford. So being a part of Stanford was the origin of my interest and exposure to startups back in the early 80s. Actually, before that, it was in the late 70s. That's when we were at business school. One of the three of us was employee number 50 at Apple. And so he spent 4 years there. I spent a few years at Atari. We came together in 1982, and that was it wasn't so common to do startups back then, but certainly Silicon Valley and the Stanford community was just alive with interest in startups. So that's how I got involved with it, and have been there ever since, really.
Tell me about more about Apple, because you met the God himself.
Every time I've seen that movie now, this is the second time I've seen it, and it affects me every time too, because that story I lived through without being actively involved with Apple, but still I knew Steve Jobs, and Steve Wozniak was on Electronic Arts' board and an investor in Electronic Arts. And as I say, our CEO was the employee number 50 at Apple, and he had been the marketing manager for the Lisa project at Apple. So we were intimately involved. I knew Steve Jobs. Lisa, his daughter, went to the same private school that my children went to, and so I ran into him there. And so we were kind of friends, but not close friends, still casual acquaintances for many, many years. And certainly the number of friends that I had, that we all had, that worked at Apple over the years just has grown and grown and grown. And so it's been a phenomenal company for that area, and was a model for a lot of companies. You know, Apple is rumored to, I don't know the facts about it, but it has a huge amount of cash now, having been the most valuable company in the world. By the same token, Electronic Arts has been very well managed over the years. It has a lot of cash too, not nearly as much as Apple does, but it's been sort of the model in Silicon Valley for companies that are very, very successful to be conservative in their expenditures and accumulate cash. The other part of it is that Apple people who were early at Apple and made a lot of money, they always turned over investments after they made money, put other investments in startups, as did the people at Electronic Arts. When we went public, we had tens of millionaires, multimillionaires, and every one of them reinvested some of their earnings into other startups. That's the way it works there. And that was a model that I think was started both by a number of companies, Hewlett-Packard and Intel and Apple. Almost all of the CEOs that started companies, have started companies that end up in Silicon Valley and make it big in Silicon Valley, the CEOs, if they're the founders too, they're eccentric. The Google guys, they are very unusual personalities. Larry Ellison is a very unusual personality. He's the Oracle founder or CEO. I'm not sure he's the founder, but he's the CEO. anybody that you look at that is there that has made it into a multi-billion-dollar corporation from having been there at the very beginning is a character, because it takes that kind of personality to drive the company to that kind of growth.
Have you invested to any Estonian startups yet, or are you just looking around?
I haven't. You know, one of the things that I'm doing is working with accelerators, and so I have at any one time 40 to 50 companies that I'm actively involved with. So it leaves me very little time to make investments abroad, because the investments I tend to make are the kinds of investments where I will be involved with the company on an intimate basis, on a daily basis, and so that's. I have so many companies that it's hard to expand for me right now, but I'm trying to get companies from Estonia to come and apply to StartX at Stanford, so that we can get involved with them on a person-to-person basis.